want to talk about a bid to change the law on abortion, to decriminalise it. Currently, it is actually a criminal offence, not just for the doctors involved, but also for a woman who is pregnant herself to actually abort her baby and even a day after the legal limit. The current law in England and Wales states that abortion is illegal, but allowed up to the first 24 weeks of pregnancy and beyond that in certain circumstances, such as if the woman's life is in danger or indeed there is a severe abnormality. But two Labour MPs, Tonia Antoniazzi and Stella Creasy, have both tabled rival amendments to the crime and policing bill that will be debated by the House of Commons today. And normally there's a free vote on issues, moral issues like abortion, so it's not a party line issue. But basically they're slightly different, these amendments, but they would allow a woman who basically is pregnant and aborts her baby at 5, 6, 7, 8, even up to birth at 9 months, not to be prosecuted. Well, let's talk about this with Dr. Sonia Adesara, who's an NHS GP and spokeswoman at Doctors for Choice UK. Good afternoon to you, Sonia.
Afternoon, Julie. Thank you for having me.
Which of these two amendments are you and the people you represent at Doctors for Choice UK supporting, and tell us why?
Yeah, we're supporting MP Antonia's amendment, NC1, and I think there's a lot of confusion about these laws and about abortion provision in this country. So I'll just to clarify for your viewers, and I think actually maybe a lot of your listeners may not realise that abortion hasn't been decriminalised in this country. Many people don't actually realise that abortion remains a criminal offence. So abortion remains a criminal offence under a law dating back to the 1800s, where a woman can face potentially life imprisonment for suspected illegal abortion. Now, women and doctors can be protected from that prosecution if they would have an abortion under the parameters dictated by the 1967 Abortion Act. So that says for a woman to have an abortion and be protected from prosecution, she needs to have 2 doctors for her to sign to have that abortion. It needs to have happened from a licensed abortion provider, and it has things like time limits stipulated in that act. Yeah. Now, today, we're not changing that act. There's no change to the Abortion Act. So there's no change to how we provide abortion care, how as clinicians we provide abortion care, and how women access abortion in this country. But what we're doing today is taking women out of that legislation from the Victorian era, because I think most of your viewers would probably agree that being governed by a law dating back to the Victorian era.
Oh, no, lots of our laws date back to that era. I don't think that's relevant at all, how old the law is. If the law's right, the law's right. The law's wrong, the law's wrong.
And the reason why we've been actually campaigning for this now for many years is because in recent years, we've been seeing increasing numbers of women being investigated and prosecuted for suspected illegal abortion. So we've had women who have had, let's say, a miscarriage or a stillbirth, and let's say previously they had searched for abortion online, then they've been referred to police, facing year-long police investigation. We've had police turned up at maternity wards, women's homes being searched, their phones confiscated, their children being taken away. We've had 6 women being taken to court, and 1 woman faced an imprisonment sentence. And the reason why we believe that it's really important that we stop these prosecutions of women is that, I guess, whatever your personal views are on abortion, I think, most of us believe that, I guess, in a civilized society like ours, it's not in anyone's interest for us to be putting women in prison for ending their pregnancy. And for these women that have had, for these women that have been accessing abortion, and for some of these women, if you look at their situation, they've been in extremely difficult circumstances. So for those women that are seeking abortion, they need to be shown compassion, they need to be shown care.
Okay,
and they need to be able to go
I accept that, but you kind of lost me, and I'm going to guess quite a lot of my audience just near the end there. Look, abortion's not a good thing. It's sometimes the least worst thing that could happen. It's always a sad occasion if a woman feels that she needs to abort her child. And I haven't gone through it myself, but I have lots of friends who've done it, and it stays with them for life. However, there are some women who move to abort their children when it's not legal to do so, past the 24 weeks, when there isn't an abnormality, when there isn't a risk to their life. And as much as I believe in the woman's right to choose, I'm a feminist through and through, card-carrying feminist, at the end of the day, there is a point when a woman has a right over her own body, but also a child accrues some rights as well. Now, many people, Catholics, for instance, would believe a baby assumes those rights from the moment of conception. I don't personally agree with that. Some people talking about, we've seen what's happened in America, some abortion rights, at 6 weeks. Most women don't even know they're pregnant at 6 weeks, or even 12 weeks. And again, 12, 14 weeks around the norm in Europe. Again, I think that's too low. I think women need to have time to make decisions about such important things. But certainly after 24 weeks, when more babies become viable and can be saved if they are born that early, it seems to me to be very clear that a baby has accrued enough rights that the woman no longer has the right, no matter what her circumstances, to abort that child if that child is healthy and viable. It seems to me that whether you're in a domestic abusive situation or you've been raped or anything like that, I'm sorry, but the child has now accrued rights, and it is important that the child's rights are also recognised. I don't think that's an extremist position.
So, Julia, the vote today is not changing time limits, so it doesn't change. It does. It's not changing time limits.
No, doctors aren't allowed to abort, but the woman would be allowed to get a pill, lie to the doctors online, and say she's not pregnant.
Well, no, we're not changing that. We're not changing the Abortion Act, so we're not changing what a woman is allowed to do. What we are doing is stopping women from being prosecuted and being sent to prison.
But you don't think that? Look, a woman who killed her baby the day after her baby was born would be prosecuted for murder. But a woman who kills her baby the day before her baby is due to be born, that would be okay? I don't think that's going to sit right with the British public.
With regards to late abortions, so the first thing to say, the vast majority of abortions are early abortions.
Very early, yeah.
The vast majority happen very, very early. Later abortions, the minority that do happen, and they do, and actually you can, in this country there will be abortions that happen after 24 weeks as well, and that's often when it's happening. These are extremely difficult circumstances when, let's say, the woman's health or the fetus's health is at risk. So sometimes late abortions do have to happen. And actually, I don't think this language of, I think actually this can be quite unhelpful, because we actually stigmatise.
Yes, because when you kill a baby, I mean, look, Sonia, I had 4 miscarriages. I know what a baby at 12 weeks looks like, okay? A lot of people aren't aware. I also know what a baby, at 20 weeks, 24 weeks, what they look like. I don't think that the vast majority of people in this country, and particularly the vast majority of women in this country, think that a baby that's just not born yet but is 6, 7, 8 months, who's perfectly healthy and viable, I don't think they would think of it as anything other than murder. Let's call it what it is. You take another human being's life, it's murder. It doesn't matter whether they're attached to you by an umbilical cord and they are viable outside the womb.
So again, this when the small number of late abortions that do happen,
and it's tiny, it's a tiny number.
It's very tiny, but when they do happen, and it's horrendously difficult for the mum and that family to have to go through that, and it will be very complex situations, often very complex medical situations that's happening there. And so I don't think actually stigmatizing and shaming those women.
We're not stigmatizing, because if it's a medical situation, there's no stigma attached. They're going through a tragedy.
We have to what I need to quite emphasize, we're not changing time limits in this law. We're just stopping the prosecution of women.
But a woman should be prosecuted. But a woman should be prosecuted if there's no reason to end her pregnancy, not for her life, not for the baby or the disability. And lots of people disagree with that, I understand, but that's my position. It seems to me that a woman should be prosecuted. If you bought your baby at 7 or 8 months and there's no medical reason for that, yes, I think you should be prosecuted. I would like you stigmatised. I think you're a baby killer.
I think, Julia, I guess language like baby killer is also very unhelpful.
Well, you're killing a baby. I think baby killer is a reasonable phrase to use.
For anyone having an abortion, that language is further reinforces difficult emotions and sometimes the stigma and the shame that women undergo. But Julia, look, I guess where we maybe here's where we differ. I think if the I'm not sure whose interest it is that we're locking up women.
The babies.
I'm not sure whose interest it is for a woman that says has a miscarriage, has a stillbirth, and then because she had previously had considered having an abortion, now it's considered suspicious, and then she gets the police turn up at her door and have to face investigations.
I understand
which is what happens when you've got this law in place. So we're saying that actually it's not in anyone's interest to be prosecuting and criminalizing
I think
women.
I think there would be circumstances when it would be.
We're not changing how we deliver abortion care in this country or how we access abortion care in this country. But also, that I guess the point maybe that gets missed here is that, regardless of the law in place, and we've seen this actually throughout the world, Julia, I'm sure you'll be aware of this, regardless of where the law is on abortion, some countries really restrict women's access to it. Some countries are more liberal. And if you look at, let's say, countries that have decriminalized abortion, what you're talking about, Julia, hasn't happened. We haven't seen a sudden increase in women having late abortions. So actually, and then the opposite we do see, though, in countries where abortion is restricted, where abortion access is criminalized, abortion rates actually don't go down. We just see more women accessing abortion in unsafe ways.
Unsafely. No, I want women to have access to abortion, but I think there's a point when the women's rights, then they are coming up with, they're going against the rights of the baby, and at that point, I'm sorry, I don't think you've got the right to take the baby's life when the baby is viable. That's where I stand. I know people stand on a whole variety of along that line, but we're going to have to leave it there. Sonia, I'm so sorry, we are completely out of time. Dr. Sonia Adesara, she's an NHS GP. I hope you'll come on again. We'll see what happens with this debate. She's a spokeswoman at Doctors for Choice UK.